welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to forget what you learned in your business degree.
Yes.
We're tackling this single biggest financial puzzle, which is, why does success with money seem to have almost nothing to do with how smart you are mathematically and, well, everything to do with something much fuzzier, your behavior?
It's the essential disconnect, isn't it? For decades, traditional finance has just lived inside spreadsheets.
Right.
It's all about the how to calculate optimal returns, how to compound. But the material we've gathered for this deep dive, pulling a lot from the insights and the psychology of money, just strips all that away.
And gets to the why.
Exactly, the why, the emotions, the personal history, the cognitive biases that really govern whether you succeed or fail in the real world.
Okay, so our mission today is to uncover these crucial psychological laws that seem to consistently override all that technical knowledge. We're aiming to help you shift your focus from, maximizing a percentage point here or there.
To maximizing your well-being and, crucially, your financial survival.
Yes, that's the key word, survival.
We'll be defining a critical difference. Why being reasonable is almost always better than being perfectly rational. And, before we're done, we'll explore what really is the highest dividend that money pays.
And I think the answer will surprise a lot of people.
I think so. It has nothing to do with market returns.
Okay, so let's unpack this with the first core insight. It's a statistical truth that should, frankly, hit us all in the gut. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what has actually happened in the world.
Such a tiny, microscopic sliver of history, and yet that one individual experience, it shapes about 80% of how you think the financial world actually works.
That's staggering.
It is, because the world we're talking about spans centuries. It includes things like global financial crises, non-U.S. inflation disasters, entire interest rate regimes that you personally have never experienced.
Yeah, are we saying that financial literacy is fundamentally relative?
In a way, yes.
Because what seems absolutely crazy to me might be perfectly rational to you, just based on the economic firestorm you walked through early in life.
Precisely. Your financial choices are not made in a vacuum. If you lived through the high inflation of the 1970s, for instance, you have this inherent distrust of stable prices.
Right, sir.
That experience marked you. You view saving and risk completely differently than someone who grew up during the dot-com boom. Or think about poverty versus wealth. A person raised in poverty approaches risk in ways a banker's kid just cannot fathom.
And this plays out in decisions that look, frankly, nonsensical on a spreadsheet. We see this with the lottery ticket paradox.
Oh, yeah.
The source material notes that low-income households spend, on average, about $412 a year on lottery tickets. That's 4 times what the highest earners spend.
And here's the kicker, right? Many of those same people can't come up with $400 for an actual emergency.
So they're spending their entire safety net on a 1 in a million chance.
And to an outside observer, that looks like crazy financial behavior. It looks like self-sabotage.
But if we look at it through their context, a life with limited prospects, the logic shifts, doesn't it? What are they really buying for that $412?
They are buying a tangible dream. They're paying for the one moment where they can hold the hope of escaping the grind, of getting the freedom that, others take for granted.
It's emotional utility.
Not investment utility. Exactly.
Yeah.
Financial decisions are rarely made with a calculator. They're made at the dinner table, all mixed up with history and ego and just desperate hope for change.
So if the spreadsheet fails us, where does that leave our goal? This leads us straight to that conflict between pure rationality and simple reasonableness.
And this is so important. Traditional economic theory demands pure rationality. You have to make the mathematically optimal choice, always.
To maximize returns.
But the key to long-term success, we find, is just being reasonable.
What's the use of a mathematically perfect strategy if you can't actually stick with it for 50 years?
You can't. A rational strategy, like some academics suggest young savers should use 2-to-1 margin.
Whoa, hang on. Leveraging debt heavily in stocks.
Yes, it might look optimal on a whiteboard in a bull market.
But it's just too emotionally demanding. It's unreasonable for a human to maintain long-term. Explain the danger there, because that sounds like a recipe for total disaster.
It is. It boosts returns in good times, sure, but it guarantees a catastrophic wipeout during a deep downturn. You borrow money to buy stocks, the market drops 50%. A margin call hits.
And you're forced to sell at the absolute bottom.
At the worst possible moment. Mathematically optimal, maybe, but psychologically, practically.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable.
And we see this even among the giants of finance. Wait, so Harry Markowitz, the Nobel Prize winner who pioneered modern portfolio theory, the architect of the optimal portfolio,
The guy who literally wrote the book.
he didn't use his own formula for his own money. Isn't that a massive indictment of the whole field?
It's a powerful moment of humility, isn't it? He was asked how he invested his retirement savings, and he said he split it 50-50, bonds and equities. He didn't do it to chase the highest return. He did it to minimize his future regret. He knew the formula was perfect, but he also knew he was human.
You prioritize sleeping at night. I love that. And I love the other example in the sources, the person who chose to have no mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
They admit, on a spreadsheet, paying off the house early is the worst financial decision. You give up tax deductions, higher market return.
But they said it was the best money decision they ever made because it gave them independence, peace of mind.
The freedom from mandatory payments,
Yeah.
that's a psychological payoff you can't calculate.
It is. It's knowing that if your job or the economy collapses, you can survive. At some point, you have to choose between a decision that makes you happy and secure and one that's just right, according to a formula.
And that idea of sustainability, of sleeping at night, it transitions perfectly into the idea of financial survival, the price of success.
We have to identify two totally distinct financial skills,
Yeah.
and they require opposite mindsets. Getting wealthy requires taking risks. It requires optimism. But
Yeah.
staying wealthy, that requires the opposite. It requires humility, fear, and a survival mindset.
The stories that illustrate this are just so sharp. On one side, we have Ronald Reed,
The janitor from Vermont.
janitor and gas station attendant. Lived modestly, saved consistently, invested in boring blue chip stocks. No fancy degree, no complex strategy.
But through decades of patient, just boring compounding, he amassed over $8 million by the time he died.
He didn't outsmart the market, he just stayed in the game.
He survived. And on the other side, you have Richard Fuscone.
The high-flying executive,
Yeah.
Harvard-educated, making millions a year.
But his relationship with money was all about insecurity, this reckless need to prove how rich he was,
The sources mention him taking, what was it, the $1,000 gold coins.
and skipping them across the Pacific Ocean, just for fun, to watch them sink. It's a profound psychological sickness. This need to show wealth is so meaningless you can literally throw it away.
Unsurprisingly, he went broke in 2008.
Of course he did.
And that's the difference right there. Reed focused on survival and longevity. Fuscone focused on showing off.
The ability to stick around without wiping out is what makes the biggest difference. You have to appreciate how brutal capitalism is. I mean, 40% of all public companies lose basically all their value over time.
That's the norm.
It's the norm. So the goal has to be survival, which means you need a margin of safety, room for error.
What does that margin of safety look like in practice? Because if you're trying to maximize returns, every dollar in cash is underperforming. It's irrational, isn't it?
It is, on paper. A margin of safety looks like holding cash you don't strictly need, keeping your fixed expenses low, diversifying even when it reduces your optimal return. The moment you're forced to sell assets to cover short-term needs, you've lost.
The margin of safety is just the insurance policy.
It guarantees you can wait until the market recovers. You're accepting a suboptimal mathematical return for maximal behavioral resilience.
This brings us to a crucial reframing exercise: how we view market volatility. Most investors, when the market drops 20%, they see it as a fine, a penalty.
And they panic. They sell to avoid the punishment.
But volatility has to be viewed as the necessary fee you pay for the long-term potential of greater returns.
I love that analogy. You don't get angry when you pay $100 for a Disneyland ticket.
No, that's the price of admission.
Volatility is the price of admission to market returns. And the irony is, by desperately trying to avoid paying that fee, investors often end up paying double by selling at the absolute worst time.
So you have to endure the fee so compounding can actually work.
You do.
Speaking of compounding, let's pivot from accumulation to application. What is all this money for anyway? It's so easy to focus on bigger houses, fancier titles.
But the source material identifies the true ultimate wealth not as high income, but as control over your time.
Right. Psychologist Angus Campbell found that a strong sense of control of your life predicts happiness better than any other factor. Better than salary, better than house size.
The ability to choose how, when, and with whom you spend your day, that is the highest dividend money pays.
And that's so relevant today with this paradox of modern work. We have more wealth, but a lot of professionals feel less happy.
Because of the shift from physical labor to thought-based work.
Yeah, you clock out of the factory, you leave your tools there.
But if your tool is your head, the work never ends. Email, Slack, It just blurs the boundaries and diminishes that critical sense of time control.
I saw this so vividly with my father, the ER doctor. Highly successful, high-stress job, but he maintained a radically high savings rate and lived well below his means for decades.
So he reached a point of pure financial independence.
Exactly. The moment he decided the burnout was too much, he could just quit.
Meanwhile, his colleagues, equally successful on paper, had engaged in lifestyle creep.
Bigger mortgages, more expensive schools. They were trapped by their monthly burn rate. They wanted to quit just as badly, but they were forced to work another 10 years.
That ability to buy your own freedom, it outweighs any happiness from a bigger house 100-fold.
And that desire to keep up is fueled by the social comparison trap. We have to remember the man in the car paradox.
Yes, no one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are.
It's so true.
And wealth, by definition, is income not spent. It's what you don't see. The guy in the Ferrari might be rich, sure, but the person you don't see, the one driving a used Honda with a massive hidden net worth, that person is wealthy.
And the ceiling for social comparison is infinite.
It is. The baseball player compares himself to the bigger star, who compares himself to the hedge fund manager who looks up at Bezos. It's a battle that cannot be won.
The only way to win is not to fight.
Which leads us to the final piece of the puzzle.
Hmm.
The role of randomness. Luck and risk are siblings. They're both the reality that outcomes are guided by forces outside your own effort.
The example with Bill Gates is perfect. His success wasn't just talent. It was the incredible luck of having access to a school computer in the 1960s.
And then you contrast that with his friend Kent Evans. Equally talented, but he died in a mountaineering accident before any of it could happen. That's the cruel line between luck and risk.
And this is where the power of long tails comes in. A small number of outlier events account for the majority of outcomes.
Most things fail. That's the default setting.
The examples are just staggering. Walt Disney, hundreds of cartoons lost money. It was one single hit, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that saved the entire studio.
Or Warren Buffett. He's owned maybe 400 or 500 stocks in his life. He made most of his money on just 10 of them.
So the implication for an investor is what?
It's profound. You can be wrong half the time. You can be wrong 90% of the time and still make a fortune.
Because the few massive winners cover all the losers.
Exactly. Behaviorally, that means you have to tolerate constant failure, the feeling of being wrong, without losing confidence. This is why 40% of stocks in the Russell 3000 lose most of their value and never recover. Failure is just normal market mechanics.
So if most things fail, and the biggest wins are unpredictable, how do we prepare for a future where the biggest risks are the ones we can't even imagine?
Since the biggest risks are always those black swan events, the 9/11s, the pandemics, the only way to be prepared is to have a level of conservatism that seems, frankly, unnecessary in good times.
We circle right back to the margin of safety.
It's the only way to navigate a world governed by odds, not certainties, and to survive long enough to catch one of those long-tail winners.
This deep dive really shows that financial success is less of a math problem and so much more a mastery of soft skills, understanding your own weaknesses, valuing flexibility.
The actionable summary here is this. Focus on earning good, consistent returns over a very long time. Don't chase the highest possible returns over a short period. Adopt what the sources call a barbelled mentality.
Which is?
Be relentlessly optimistic about the long-term future, but remain intensely paranoid about the short-term risks that could wipe you out tomorrow.
That brings us back perfectly to our mission, prioritizing well-being and survival over pure maximization. Thank you for helping us synthesize all of this.
My pleasure. And as you go forward, think about this. History is often used as a map for the future, but ironically, history is the study of change. The biggest events that will define the next generation's financial world are the ones that are structurally unprecedented, things you can't predict by looking at the past, like the invention of the 401k or the rise of venture capital. The real challenge is recognizing that formulas that worked yesterday are often antiquated today.
Something profound to mull on. So, think about your own plan. How much of your strategy is built around maximizing returns versus maximizing flexibility and control over your invaluable time? We'll leave you with that thought.